One. Hey there, everybody. Pete Pardo here from Sea of Tranquility. Welcome to a very special edition of the show. We have a great guest here today, none other than guitarist and founding member of Marillion, Mr. Steve Rothery. Steve, welcome to Sea of Tranquility. Great to have you.
Thanks. Great to be here.
You and I haven't seen each other in many years. You may not even remember, but we met, God, it's got to be at least 15 years ago, maybe a little more, at Kenny's Castaways in New York City. You guys did an album listening event.
Yeah. Was that the thing that I did with Pete and my friend David Levine?
Yes.
Yeah, I remember it well. Yeah.
Yes. So there was a bunch of people there. You guys played the album. It was the first time met everyone hearing the album, and we met up for a little bit. That either before or afterwards, I don't remember. I still have a picture of you and I and Pete somewhere. But yeah, so that's been a while. I'm trying to remember what album that was. Was that Marbles, maybe?
I'm not sure, actually.
Strange Engine, maybe?
It might have been the Strange Engine. I know we did come across for the Marbles album, but
I think it was Strange Engine. I think you're right.
Yeah,
you're right. Well, it's good to see you again. Thanks for spending some time with us today. So it's very timely, obviously, because we've got the new album called An Hour Before It's Dark, your 20th studio album, which is crazy. Set for release March 4th, available in all sorts of different formats. So let's talk a little bit about the album. So how long had the band been working on this one? How long did it take? And when did you sit down and say, okay, we're ready to do another one amidst this crazy time we're all living in?
Yeah, in total, it was probably about 18 months, but there was sections of that where we couldn't work together. There was a period of time when I wasn't working with the band. I was working from home because I was shielding, before we all got the vaccines. And then there was another period when it was complete lockdown over here. So we were all working from home for a couple of months. But yeah, then when we did get together, things started to come together quite quickly. I think there was for me personally, that sense of excitement. There's nothing like when the five of us get together. There's still such a fantastic chemistry between us that I'd have one idea after another, and Mike Hunter's skillfully included a lot of the little kind of melodic moments that I came up with on various songs in the final arrangements, so which is nice. But yeah, no, great chemistry for me, a great sense of excitement.
You guys recorded this at Peter Gabriel's Real World Studios, just like the last time?
Most of it was at our own studio at the Racket Club,
okay.
But we did go down to Real World for a week to do some additional recording and some filming down there. It's just the best studio in the world, really. It's an incredible place, quite surreal, totally bonkers, but yeah, a great place to work.
Yeah, I mean, you guys obviously must have a connection. It's got the history, plus you recorded the last album there, so
yeah, no, there's something magical about it. I mean, it's a fantastic room. It's a huge room, and you all play in what is essentially the control room, where normally you'd have the producer engineer in the control room, and you'd all be in a separate room. With this, it's all in one, so it's all about the performance. It's a stunning piece of architecture.
So it's not a question. Talking of studios, it's not a question I normally ask folks in the music industry. But you've been around the block a bit or two, and you've worked in lots of different studios. Is it really true that every studio is completely different, even though they may be set up similarly? You get different sounds. There's, depending on what's there. I mean, I've heard so many like horror stories from so many different bands about, that studio no good, that studio no good, but that studio was great. That one's even better. So have you had that kind of experience?
To a certain extent, there's different factors involved, really. Sometimes it's just a great acoustic space, like Hansa Studios in Berlin, where we recorded Misplaced Childhood. The main room there used to be a ballroom, and it's just a very kind of lively but controlled acoustic. And the desks that they used to have in there used to be a vintage Neve. So again, that gives it a certain sound. I mean, Abbey Road, you can say, some of the acoustics in Abbey Road are quite special. Obviously, it's got all the history, but that's really not so important. I mean, you can do so much these days in your bedroom. That's literally the way most records are made.
Yeah.
A lot of the recording on the new Marillion album, a lot of the guitar parts I recorded in my garage. It's not really like a normal garage. It's kind of got about 100 grand's worth of equipment in there, but it's still a garage. So it's only when it comes to record things like drums that you need a really special acoustic space, I think.
Sure. So the new album, so it's made up of a few like multi-part compositions. And to me, again, just hearing the album over the last couple of days, a lot of the lyrical content, very relevant to things going on in the world. And can you talk a little bit about like kind of writing the songs, the musical themes, as well as kind of, what all went into the lyrics to put these tracks together?
But I think when we started out, Steve actually said he didn't want to write about the pandemic because he thought everybody was going to be doing that. But when you're living through such a particular moment of history, I think, as we all have done, it can't help but start to, permeate your work, really. So, it did come out in the lyrics of several songs. And the same way, the whole climate change situation came up as well in Reprogram the Gene. That's Steve tends to write about the things that he feels strongly about.
Sure.
And like the end of care, the fact that this, the incredible sacrifice that the doctors and nurses and healthcare professionals made during the pandemic, caring for the ill, and that sometimes at the cost of their own lives. It's good to write words, I think, that means something. And Steve always has. I think it's one of his gifts.
Yeah. And in addition to the lyrical part of the album, I mean, for me, and it's one of the great things that I'm excited to be talking to you about, because I'm always more of I listen to the music first before lyrics. And I got to say, and we've said this about you for many years, but your guitar playing is excellent on this album, and a couple of songs kind of come to mind. Crow Nightingale is a really good song. It's one of the longer pieces on the album, and it has a tremendous lyrical, melodic Stephen Rothery solo, which you're known for that kind of playing, right? It's like you're the guy who could say a lot in just a couple of notes, where you don't need a million of them like some other guys.
It's Crow Nightingale is my favorite song on the album. I think it's pretty much as close to perfect as maybe any song we've ever done. I think the different textures in it, the string quartet in the first section, the harps, and then the choirs in the end section. It just all creates this incredible emotional journey. And when I did the solo, again, I did it in my garage here. I put together something I think sounds good against the music. But then when you hear the mix, when it's had all these additional parts added and had this incredible choir put on there, you can't help but feel the old shiver down the spine, really, that you've been a part of the creation of something so special.
Yeah.
So it's quite a magical moment.
Yeah, there's a lot. There's a lot of really good moments on the album. And I think what's interesting is also, especially some of the tracks that have multiple parts in it. So you'll go from past parts that have really lush vocal sections, and some that are a minute or two long. It's mostly instrumental, very atmospheric. So it's there's a lot of kind of like peaks and valleys throughout the whole album, which I think for most longtime fans, I think they've come to expect that from you. But I think it flows really nicely. All the little tracks kind of segue into the next.
Yeah, after the success of Fear, both artistically and commercially, we really wanted to make another great album. We thought, we're all getting on a bit. Who knows how many more albums we've got left in us? So let's make each one count.
Yeah. And
the criteria was that we wouldn't have anything on this record unless it was good enough to have been on the last album as well, in terms of quality, which is what we strive for. And I think Mike Hunter's production and his arrangement skills has really helped us to achieve that.
And "Be Hard on Yourself" is quite the memorable song. Is that being released as a single?
Yeah, that was kind of released to promote the tour.
Right.
And we're going to have an edited version of Murder Machines coming out in a couple of weeks.
Okay, good. Yeah, there's some really accessible stuff on the album, as well as some little more, like I said, kind of atmospheric, kind of chill out type of music, which you guys have always mixed really well on your material throughout the years. And one of the things I did want to touch on, I mean, Marillion's been around for a long time, but regardless of kind of what era we're talking about, you have this real tight relationship with the fan base, which you don't see from a lot of other bands. I mean, these are fans that will stick through with you through thick and thin, and they're always there. They're always so supportive. You've done the crowdfunding thing, and the tours always do well. What is it about Marillion that kind of makes that relationship with the fans so much tighter? I mean, you don't see that with a lot of other bands.
Well, I don't. It's hard to really put it into words, but yeah, I mean, for the last 25 years since the tour fund for the American tour in '97, we've always just had a very close relationship with our fan base. I think when the internet kind of took off, we were kind of using it. Really, I mean, this is kind of even before social media became so popular, but just using it to communicate with the fans and create a sense of like a global community, really. And you see that when we do the Marillion weekends, like the flagship event in Port Zealand in the Netherlands, you have 3,000 people that are flying in from all corners of the world to congregate to take over the whole of this Center Parks, kind of like a holiday village, really. And we have this huge tent, and we play to the best audience you could ever imagine, and the whole thing's a party. People are making friendships, and it's a somebody said it was more like a cult than a band, and I don't know if I'd go along with that, but it's definitely it's a family. It's a global family, really. And I think maybe the difference as well is that we don't distance ourselves. We don't put ourselves above them. There's none of that star nonsense. I mean, a lot of our fans, I've got some great friends all around the world, people at the fan clubs all around the world. There's no us and them at all in our relationship with our fans.
It's a people's band, right? Basically.
Yeah, pretty much. Yeah.
Do you still get folks showing up to some of the shows shouting "Play Fugazi" or something like that, or has that kind of died down now?
That's pretty much died down. Somebody might shout out Grendel, but it's really for comedic effect more than a serious suggestion.
Yeah, you guys aren't playing Grendel anytime soon.
No. Although I did play with my solo band as part of a bet a few years ago.
Well, I'm sure you, especially, and the other guys who were around back then, I'm sure you must have fond feelings about the early days in the 80s, but I mean, it was so long ago, and it's really such a small part of the history of this band now at this point.
Oh, absolutely. Yeah. But I'm very proud of all our music. I mean, in the Fish years, I probably wrote most of the music. So I do occasionally play some of that early stuff with my solo band when we go out, played the whole of Misplaced Childhood, the whole of Clutching at Straws. And for me, it's just a celebration of my career. It's, the band has moved on from that period of time, and I'm proud of everything we've done. So it's good sometimes to play some of the old stuff as well.
Oh, sure. So when you sit down and kind of give it some thought, what are the like 2 or 3 Marillion albums that you feel the most proud of, that mean the most to you?
Oh, it's very hard to say.
It's like picking favorite children, right? It's usually
exactly, yeah. I mean, Season's End was a very important album because so many people had written the band off, and I think to come back after such a major change with such a great record, it was quite special. Afraid of Sunlight, we knew we were going to be dropped by EMI, and we made one of the best albums of our career in one of the shortest periods of time we had. And I think that's an album that still stands up the test of time. I mean, and Fear, and the last album, So there's a lot to choose from.
Do you ever feel a desire to go back and create something like Brave again, or is that like a once in a lifetime sort of project?
I don't know. We never really plan our records. Maybe Brave was a reaction to some pressure we felt from EMI to try and be more commercial. So in some respects, every album is a bit of a reaction to the previous one, but I don't know. I mean, I think we've got another 2 albums left in us at least, but who knows what they will be.
We'll have to wait and see. We'll have to wait and see. So, COVID-19. So one of the things I talk to just about every artist over the last year and a half is, so how much of an impact has it made on you, or the band specifically, as far as, because I know you guys generally play live a fair amount. So how much has this set you back, and what are the plans going forward now that we're in the early stages of 2022?
It didn't affect as much in terms of playing live. The only thing we had planned last year, I think, was a Cruise to the Edge that was moved to this coming year. We managed to do the 2-week UK tour in November of last year. But even that was, so much pressure and uncertainty, because we were all bubbling before the tour to try and make sure that we didn't have to cancel it. And then Mark Kelly still managed to catch COVID 10 days before the tour was due to start. So it was very touch and go whether or not we would be able to do all the tour. We thought we might have to miss out the first few shows. As it was, he recovered just in time, and we could do the whole tour. But it does create additional pressure. We were bubbling for the tour, so there was no wives or girlfriends until the end. And so it was quite a claustrophobic experience, just traveling on a tour bus, which I pretty much hate. I've kind of done it for 40 years, and yeah, thanks, but no thanks. But we all had to do that. So it was just the one aspect of touring during a pandemic. This coming year, we have the Marillion weekends. So fingers crossed they're not going to be impacted. We have the first one in Poland, in Łódź, at the beginning of April. So yeah. Hopefully everything will be going ahead as planned.
Good. I mean, how important is it these days, touring, CD and merch sales? I mean, you have to kind of do it all, right? I mean, because it's probably hard to make a full living on just music sales, CDs, downloads, LPs, all that sort of thing.
Yeah, I mean, we're quite lucky because our fans are of the generation that want physical product.
Yeah. And
usually they want a special edition. You want something that's more than just about the music. But it is tough. But because of the pre-orders, because of the crowdfunding, because of the Marillion weekends, financially, we've managed to come through the pandemic, and have a year where we didn't have any income, pretty much. So a lot of bands would be really struggling with that situation. But we're lucky. Ian Mosley actually looks after the band's finances, and he's very shrewd, very careful. So he had a buffer built in to the Marillion vaults. So.
Well, it's got to make you happy and make you feel good when you're one of the maybe few bands out there that can put out something like this once a year or whatever, and your fans who probably already have this or any of the other ones in multiple formats will go and purchase it again, right? I mean, not every band can do that.
No, that's true. But I think you kind of get to the point in your life where there's only certain albums or certain films that kind of resonate with you to a certain amount or depth. I mean, I think of all the different versions of Blade Runner that I've bought over the years, or the director's cuts, the Blu-rays, and so that's just kind of what you do. I think if there's something that you love, you're always after that little bit extra.
Yeah, we call it here on the channel, Steve, the curse. The curse is real, as you can.
Yes, yeah.
It's terrible. So we've got the release date coming up March 4th here in the US anyway. So What can fans expect from this new album? We talked a little bit about it earlier, but from your perspective, what are you looking forward to here?
I think it's how can you describe it? It's an album that could only have been made during the pandemic. It has a lot more energy, maybe, than some of our albums. Lots of great melodies. Yeah, just very special. I can't see anybody being disappointed.
A lot of emotion in it too, I get.
Yes, yeah, it's quite uplifting, even though some of the subject matter is quite dark at times. But on a whole, I think it's a positive album.
Good. I would agree. So before I let you go, because I have to ask, because everybody's going to want to know, it's time to talk gear a little bit. So
Okay.
what types of guitars have you been playing live? What did you use on the album? Effects, amps, all that kind of stuff.
Right. How long have you got? My main guitar on the record is my Blade, which is an early Blade RH4, which is like a super strat with two Lindy Framing single coils and a Blade humbucker. And it's a passive guitar, but it has an active circuit you can push in to get like a mid boost. That's an adjustable level mid boost, so you can really push the front of the amps. That's kind of been my main guitar, though I've used different things as well, Telecasters and 12 strings and a Fender Jaguar. But it's mainly 99%, I'd say, it's that guitar. It's impossible to get a bad sound out of it. I think incredibly versatile. Most of the amps, it's Groove Tubes Trio 3-channel valve preamp and various different power amps, either a Groove Tubes Dual 75 or a Fryette power amp, and just different effects, really. I used to use TC2290s. I now use a delay by a Japanese firm called Free the Tone, which is basically a 2290 in a stomp box. Different kind of reverbs. There's a Nunaba reverb pedal I used a lot on the record. Hughes and Kettner Rotosphere for the Leslie type sounds. Mm-hmm. A Mojo Vibe, vintage sort of circuit I use quite a lot. Electro Harmonics, Pitchfork, which is like a really transparent pitch shifter to add like an octave below and sometimes above as well. Oh, what else? Free the Tone Firestorm, I think, overdrive pedal. A couple of different compressors. Analog Man, Micro Chorus, Prince of Tone. Yeah, a lot of stuff.
Yeah, Steve likes his boxes. It sounds like. Very
yeah,
cool.
No, I buy. It's like with pedals, you can really disappear down the rabbit hole with them. Really.
Oh yeah.
I buy a lot, and I've started to my friend Dave Foster, the guitarist in my solo band, who's a great player and also a bit of a gear junkie too. He's been selling all my old pedals for me, so you kind of get to the point where you really don't need 10 different overdrive pedals. So.
No, that's true. Well, it sounds like you're someone who just kind of you experiment, and if you like it, it stays. If it doesn't, away it goes.
Exactly. It's all about that. It's all about finding the sound in your head.
Yeah. So you're not going to be like Frank Marino back in the 70s, who had this like kind of freight train of pedals that he brings out on stage, right?
Yeah, no, well, I've got two huge racks because the sounds that I use for the early Marillion stuff, it's all JC120 with a Boss DS1 distortion and different delays and different units. So there's like these two huge racks live, but in my studio at home, I've got various sort of preamps and power amps and AC30s, Marshall, what else? A Pitcher, which is like a Dumble clone. Yeah, quite a lot of different amps.
Cool. Yeah, there's so many good ones, right?
Yeah.
Not enough time to collect and play them all.
No,
or money, right?
Well, sometimes it's just good to have a different sort of palette of tone.
Yeah.
Some amps are just fantastic at doing that one thing, but it's great to have the choice.
Yeah, absolutely. Sounds good. Well, everybody, we've got the new Marillion album, An Hour Before It's Dark, coming out in just a little over a month. So If you haven't pre-ordered it from wherever you pre-order your stuff from, please do that, but be on the lookout for it. I've heard it's really good. I think if you liked Fear, the last album, or any of the last couple, I think you'll dig this. It's kind of along those same lines. It's quality Marillion. So I want to thank Stephen Rothery for joining us here today. And if you get the chance, check them out on the road, as I'm sure when they're able to, they'll hopefully make it your way. So thanks, everybody. Visit us on the web at www.seatranquility.org. We're on Facebook, we're on Twitter, but more importantly, we're here together on YouTube all the damn time. For Stephen Rothery, I am Pete Pardo. Have a good one, everybody. Take care.
Cheers.